and welcome back to the Lightside Podcast. My name is Shola. I'm your host, and I'm so excited. Today we have beautiful Kai Carter here with us. I'm going to, Kai is waving. We're going to have a conversation on self-love, and we're going to talk about self-relationship, our relationship with ourself, self-love, the fear of being seen, and we'll find out what else we talk about as the conversation goes. But before I hand over to Kai to give us a more broader introduction on herself, Kai is an aspiring author. She's currently working on her master's in psychology. She's a self-made entrepreneur and a social media personality, if I may say so. She is so much fun to follow. I actually met Kai on Instagram. It's the beauty of social media. I'm so excited to have her here. She is such an incredible person, beautiful energy. And I'm going to hand over to her. Kai, you want to share a little bit about you?
Yeah, hello everyone. Okay, I just want to say I love that intro. That had me grinning in the background, like, oh, yay. But hello, my name is Kai. I am a self-relationship coach and mentor, specializing in authentic expression, trusting yourself, and healing the relationship with yourself. I do one-on-one coaching, social media advice, working on a blog, all the juicy bits in between. Uh, I would say I've been coaching for about 2.5, 2 years now,
Amazing.
and it's been such a gratifying experience. I love meeting new people so much and talking to them through their experiences. And people really underestimate how innately amazing they are, and just being able to reflect that back to them is the most gratifying process because to see like when
I
you
love
meet someone new and the light just fills it inside of you, and it's nice people get to experience that back with them.
I love what you said about helping people see the light within themselves, basically, right? It's like having a coaching or mentorship relationship, it allows someone else to shine a spotlight on the parts of you that really shine even more so. I love how you put that. That's beautiful. And Kai, I know that you have a beautiful story to share. Before we dive deep into today's conversation, I think it's helpful to hear what Kai's story is as it relates to self love and self confidence and embodying like a relationship with yourself. How did that pan out for you over time?
Oh goodness, where to start? Okay, so as we spoke a little earlier, as a young being on the neurodivergent spectrum, I was very, very friendly. I did not believe in strangers, which made my understanding of boundaries a little iffy, but I would talk to anybody. I'd try to be my friend. I would talk a lot about things that interest me to get close to people that I found interesting. And some point in those early years, it wasn't very well received. If I'm being myself and I'm being friendly and people aren't being responsive to that, something must be wrong with me as a person. After a time, kind of just put on a wall, probably okay if the person I am myself doesn't resonate with people, I'll try to become something they like. I will put on whatever personality they need to see so that they will stay in my life, so I won't be rejected, not be accepted by my peers. Hills all this time. And then I think when I got to my sophomore year of college, I felt very, very lonely. I didn't understand why. I was a person who knew everybody. I had friends, I was going out, and the loneliness I felt was, dare I say, very crippling. And got very sad, got very low for a while, and I was like, what's going on? And then I came back home for a summer, and for the first time in 3 months, I was around my high school friends, and the air just got lighter, and I could breathe. I think it was like 1920 at the time, and I was like, what's going on? Why is it so much different here than there? And I realized the line was, okay, I I'm more myself here. And then when I went to school, the big oopsie happened where I did not pass because I spent too much time at the parties with the friends more than my studies at the time because I did not like my major. I went in for zoology, math, science. I was a creative kid. I was doing the STEM thing so my family would be appeased and job that makes stable income, and did not like it. Ended up leaving, came back home, and was home for a long time. My and going back with my father, and he was very much into spirituality. He had been trying to get me to meditate since I was 14. And as a 14-year-old, I'm like, Dad, why am I going to sit and breathe in a corner for 10 minutes? That's so boring. No. And love that he is so persistent. He was able to keep up the pace for 7 years to get his 21-year-old daughter to sit on a mountain and breathe in the silence. Because when you flunk out of school, the path is awry. You're like, what am I going to do with my life? And I sat and I breathed with him. And after about 20 minutes of just taking it all in, he was like, well, what are you going to do? What would you do? There's nowhere to go but up from here. And I was like, I could be a writer and I want to talk people through their problems. So wanted to become a writer because I wanted to change people's perspective of life and what life could be. And that's the path I pursued. I was like, I'm going to pursue this writing thing. Went back to college and different university, did what I loved, took one counseling course, actually just one, and I realized I love talking to people. I had always loved talking to people and seeing people. That was the energy that little me had all those years ago. But then was space to do it. So finally in a liberal arts college where everyone's a little wonky and wild and colorful and creative, I love those people. Thank goodness liberal arts individuals. I finally had a space where I was able to breathe and express all of me in an environment where my peers, other creative beings, wonky, wild, lovely people. I realized, oh, I was in the wrong environment. I can breathe and be myself here because everyone gets it. And then the more it was a step on it too, the more I'm like, okay, how myself can I be? You know, what's the limit? And I noticed the people who I love the most, love me the most, would match the energy, would bounce back, would elevate each other to 100%, whacked out energy. And those who didn't get it, I was like, okay, so you're not for me. And for the first time in years, I felt so in love with myself. I felt so at peace with myself. I could finally trust the steps that I took because I knew I'm moving for the first time with my own interests, my own heart-led steps. And I was at peace. And it was the most surreal experience after 17, 18 years of putting on a mask for everybody else and not knowing what I wanted to do or who everyone was or what mattered to me. And then, oh gosh, when was I? I was like 24 when I got my certification because I was like, okay, I have been preaching to everyone I meet about the magic of being yourself and out loud. And people are like, Kai, you were just so out there. I'm like, yep, because I spent too long in a box. I'm not going back into the box. The world can handle me. So it will listen. I was like, this is what you gotta do. My grandma would come to me saying, Kai, how are you so happy? And I'm like, this is what you gotta do. This stuff. It's amazing. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, okay, backing up. What's your happy? This is my happy. What's your happy? Did for my grandma, did for my auntie. And after a couple times of doing it, I'm like, okay, I need to take this seriously. So I sat down, got my coaching certification, and have loved every second because you get to be yourself. As I said earlier, be yourself with other people and give people permission to be themselves together. The world actually becomes a lot happier place, even with amounts of all the crazy going on. When you actually get to relax into the energy you're in, it's not suffocating anymore. And I am going on a ramble.
No, I love this. Thank you. I think that's so inspiring. And it's so beautiful that you had this experience at such a young age, right? Because I think a lot of times there is like, for one, your level of awareness, like self-awareness really shines because, you know, you were aware that, okay, I am doing all these things because it's almost projected onto me. And whereas like really deep down, it doesn't ring true for me. And I'm deeply unhappy. I'm not liking it. You stopped yourself from going down a path that wasn't aligned with who you truly are. And the fact that you didn't allow that facade to drag you in deeper and deeper down a path, like studying something you're not passionate about. I'll stop going on a tangent myself, but I think it just shows that you were able to firsthand experience what it's like. It's almost like life wanted you to get that experience of seeing what it's like to do something that doesn't empower you, that doesn't allow you to shine your talents, and how suffocating and how lonely that feels, and how much maybe even on the outside, it can be this like life that feels really shiny or like happy because you're surrounded by a lot of
Yeah.
people, doesn't
Hmm.
mean that that actually mirrors the same in your life experience. Whew, I can totally relate to that, but much later in my life. And then as far as realizing it, and then, I
Better
think
late than never.
yeah, it's true. And like, I think for everyone's story is unique and different because like there are certain lessons that need to be learned over and over again sometimes before it really hits home. And I think that level of self trust and self belief and that self confidence that I've seen you share in your content and also in what you just shared right now, it's a gift if you can develop it earlier in life because you stop chasing the stories that other people want you to embody and you start creating your own. It's a gift, honestly, to have that level of belief in yourself, and I love that. I love that your story like can be inspiring to others. It is inspiring to
Thank
others,
you.
including myself.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will.
No,
The other thing that I was picking up in your story was your energy that led, right? It was being in love with what you were doing almost, right? Like what you
yeah.
were studying, like what you were creating was leading the energy that you shared with others. And as a result, that led you into coaching and mentorship, right?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I think that's really well put. I definitely followed the love. I followed like what lit me up and got really comfortable not being stuck with what I wanted to do at one point. Not afraid to shift into what this is where my heart is right now. Because
Mm.
I think, as I said, went to school for writing and now I'm a coach. And I never stopped loving writing, but then something in my heart just pivoted saying, no, this is where you're supposed to be. This is where we feel the most full, the
Yes.
most, people say, I guess, of service. Like there's something that actually does feed your soul when you're of service to the community. And of course, writing can also do that because you are giving story, word, sometimes entertainment, sometimes wisdom to the people. But one-on-one connection just for me, it feeds my soul. And I am very grateful that my heart led me right here. And I'm even more grateful that I shut up and listened at some point in my life. Because sometimes your heart will be like, hey, we're going the wrong direction. And the blinders on, and we're like, no, no, that way doesn't seem very safe. That is risky. We're just gonna not do that. It's how I ended up doing zoology for 2 years. And even my dad was like, why'd you do that? And I'm like, nobody gave me permission to be myself. If you would have warned me, I wouldn't have done it. But mom reigned supreme, and mom.
What is that?
So basically, I wanted to be Eliza Thornberry. Her parents were zoologists, and like, yeah, I'm just gonna spend time with animals all day because I didn't do enough research and didn't realize how much science was involved. And I was in drama and orchestra and art classes and loved English and history. And I don't know why I thought I could handle organic chemistry at 18 years old.
Um, you know what? I love this. I hated chemistry too, but well, I not saying too, but I hated chemistry. But I just what I wanted to say though is that, it sounds like you were spiritually led to zoology because like you love life, you're a spiritual being and you were drawn to life. And then when you got to the academic part of it, you saw that like, wait a minute, the way academics teach it is more like scientific versus spiritual, and I think like you're drawn to
Mm.
you're drawn to like the arts and creativity because I think spirituality is creativity. Your natural instincts drew you to areas that prove that you're a lover of life, but society is like, no, that's not how we That's not how we do it. You know?
Okay, the way that like my skin is tingling right now, I had never thought of it that way, and I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. I was
Yeah.
just like, wow, okay, that resonates so deeply. I am gonna hold on to that truth. That is,
I love that. I'm happy to
whew.
hear it. It came to my mind. Animals and nature are like, from a spiritual perspective, they really bring us back to ourselves.
Mhm.
And
Definitely.
anyways, thank you for letting me go into so many different tangents. If you were to give the listeners some tips on cultivating happiness, like what would you tell them to do?
Okay, this is one that I actually use today that I
Yay.
think I use the most often. And I guess I would call it like almost a 2 minute mini meditation mixed with a little bit of like somatic work. I swear I came up with this on accident. It could exist somewhere else, but it came to me on accident when I was sitting at my desk. And it's going into your body and feeling your heartbeat and
Mm.
feeling like the pulse go like down like through your veins into your palms down to your toes and not focusing on anything else but your heartbeat. And somehow if you just like really feel into your body, not just thinking about it but really feel into your body, like tune out the sounds around you and try to feel as deeply as you can, tingles start on your skin,
Mm.
and it almost feels like you're being tickled from the inside out and you automatically start smiling. And I've done this with clients before and it's wild, and like it's happening to me now because
Yeah, I have it now
like
too.
you feel the love from you in you and you just instantly feel amazing.
Wow. I love that. That's such a beautiful tip because I mean, I felt it when you were saying that. I started getting like goosebumps all over. And then that's genius. I love that. It's like,
Thank you.
here, I'm alive. It allows us to be present. It's like such a beautiful
Yes.
practice of mindfulness. I'm going to try that. Thank you.
Yes, please do. Please do. I love it so much. I think I did mention in a workshop that I had earlier about how we sometimes forget that we can tap in
Mm,
to the joy. We're so focused on getting to the next step and the stressors of, well, I'm trying to get to a place of control, under control, and we
yeah.
forget to slow down. And that sometimes the way out is to just stop for a second and
Mm,
breathe. I'm gonna quote Master Oogway again because there's that scene in Kung Fu Panda where he puts the staff in the water and it goes from agitated to just still. We
yeah.
think we had to swim through it, and as my dad said, sometimes you have to. You're being called to just sit in the current, not swim through it, but just let the current carry you for a second. And there's so much
Mm.
clarity in just sitting for a minute. And I'm not acting like I'm perfect because I'm still working that sometimes. We are human, things get under our skin.
I want to talk about the fear of being seen. And I love the post that you share on it. And for listeners, Kai has a workbook on it. She has tons of content on Instagram on this. So definitely follow her if you don't already. I always love seeing Kai's posts, by the way. They are so fun and just like
Aw,
embody who she is, just remind people to be themselves. And hearing your story helps add to that, why you're passionate about
thank
that.
you.
And I love it. It's good stuff. And as someone who struggles with the fear of being seen still today, even though like I've been working on it like the last 18 months, I would say, I always find I'm like, wait, I have a fear of being seen with that. Like, oh my God, I have a fear of being seen with that. It's like there's so many, I think we each have blind spots. Even as a coach that helps other people find their blind spots, I'm always
Yeah.
finding that I have more myself. I think it's natural, but at the same time, I wish I could just uncover them all. Um, it's just the
Yeah,
impatient
absolutely.
part of me. The fear of being seen can be so like multifaceted and so complex, and like there's so much
Mhm.
that goes to it. But I think in short, it would be helpful for people to get an intro of that, what how you define it.
Well, I'm gonna start with like how I would define it. I feel like the fear of being seen as any kind of anxiety that causes a freeze response when you're expressing yourself. So in moments where you feel like this is really close to the real me, and you're
Mm.
like, you pause. I feel like that's what the fear of being seen is. I feel like it has a lot of different origins. Some people, it's the fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. It has ties to some sort of, if I let myself be seen by people, I have a risk of not being safe. Well, they will judge me, they will reject me, they'll say that I'm bad, I'm not worthy. And sometimes that reflects our own limiting beliefs about ourselves. Like they will see that I am not together. They will see that I am imperfect, that I have individual pieces that don't fit what I think their standard could be, or even if it doesn't fit their standard. And personally, I say that ain't the standard you should be meeting anyway. Those who resonate with you will love you regardless. There's 9 billion people on the planet now.
Yeah. I love the jump.
There's someone for everybody, and not everybody's for everybody, and that is for a reason.
Mm.
So I would definitely say the fear of being seen is when we become uncomfortable or almost ashamed of who we actually are
Mm.
at our heart, because our heart's fragile. It's a very squishy part of us, and we love it so much. Most of our defense mechanisms are trying to keep that sweet center that we have safe from the big bad world around us. And when we let ourselves be seen, we let that squishy part of us touch the earth.
Mm.
And kind of like a parent with their child, it's like, oh, it's dangerous out there, and puts all these blocks like, oh, don't do that. Oh, stop. That's dangerous. You could get hurt. I don't want you to. And it hinders us from exploring. That's also why I just talk about the fear of being seen in inner child work so interchangeably, because we're protecting our kid us, the us that was not afraid of anything, that was not afraid of drawing the worst picture ever and swearing it was a pony, of dancing like a helicopter and thinking no one can touch my moves. Like, who are they? Like, look at this awesome cartwheel thing that I can do. What? I'm the coolest person on the planet, before we're taught, oh, we got to fit into a box. And we don't want to get that same feeling of, oh, me being me isn't enough. So we don't want to experience it again. So we completely block out anything that could lead to that feeling. That was a very long explanation, but
No, it's
everything is so multifaceted.
no, I love that. I think, okay, so from this conversation, and I think through my experience too, I would say that the it feels like the biggest shield towards like healing the fear of being seen is working on your self-love and self-acceptance. Do you agree with that? What are your thoughts on, let's say people are like, okay, yeah, I deal with this fear. What should I do? What would you say to them?
I would definitely agree with what you said. It definitely starts with accepting yourself first. And that was the first step. I feel like that's the hardest hurdle if you're being taught, oh, who you are isn't acceptable. But accepting all of you, not just, oh, I like all my good parts, but even the parts, especially, not even parts, especially the parts that make you cringe a little bit, you might still feel ashamed of. Give extra love to
Mm.
those parts. Learn any way you can. Just you sit and journal, talk to yourself. There's nothing wrong with talking to yourself. I encourage talking to yourself. It's very helpful. Um, going for a walk and just sitting with your thoughts and really becoming reacquainted with you, trying out hobbies that you're interested with that you might have been afraid you weren't going to be good at, or didn't think you could do, or that you wanted to do when you were a kid and now you're adults and you have the funds to do it. I highly encourage doing the things that light you up, taking the time to understand what you find important in the world, what your values are, the self that you idealize, and why you idealize that version of yourself, and start making the shifts if you can, one step at a time. Just being the person that you love being. Not the highest version, the best version, but the version you love being. When you're with, you say, your best friend, alone in your room, the you that can dance crazy to your playlist, like there's no one watching because no one is, that you, getting to know them as intimately as you can. I think that was the most
Mm.
best place to start. And then we can get into, hey, world, here's me. But I feel like when you're not ashamed, when you're not ashamed of you anymore, when you're like, I think I'm the coolest person in my life, it's almost automatic that you stop being afraid of what other people say because you know in your soul that it's not true. Like whatever you think of me, I know me way better than you do. Why would I listen to what you say about me? Of course, with people you love, they're like, "Hey, you're being a little mean." Possibly listen to that sometimes.
It's so true that, our relationship with ourselves is the most important relationship we'll ever have. Our relationship with ourselves is the most important relationship we'll ever have, if I can say that. That's a very popular phrase that's out there, but I think a lot of times what you just said reminded me of how a lot of people don't really know that part of themselves that is cringe because they try to hide it, right? Or maybe they do,
Mm-hmm.
and people are trying to hide those parts of themselves so much so that we don't even know who we truly are. Like it's like that's where the self-discovery journey comes into play. And like why this work is like the work of a lifetime, really, especially like for me, this is like I've known myself to be a certain way for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and that was because like I'm showing up in a specific way that's very rigid. And then getting to know this
Yeah,
other part of you requires a lot of love, self-love, self-compassion, vulnerability with yourself,
definitely.
a lot of time with yourself. I think what I'm learning is that maybe even, you're in a relationship too. And I think I'm seeing that relationships help us even see those parts of ourselves that we try to hide even more.
Definitely, definitely. Oh, that one hit me. I will say the most gratifying part, and people might disagree with me, of being in a relationship is being told about your blind spots.
Mm,
Having someone so intimately close to you that you cannot hide your blind spots, spots you didn't know you might have, and then be like, hey, have you noticed this? And you're like, oh wow. And to me, it's almost kind of like a puzzle to kind of like see all the facets of me. And I'm, I guess, say, very open to other people's perception of me now. In a place where I'm comfortable with me. So I'm like, if you feel like there's something about me we want to discuss that makes you feel some type of way or something you're seeing that I can improve, absolutely let me know. And I can take it and work on it, or I can take it and be like, okay, we can talk about it. But it's nice to have people that mirror all of you back to you. All, all of it mirrored back to you. But I also want to add, of course, the good parts they reflect back to you. Like the light in you they reflect back to you. Because sometimes you might already love yourself and think, you're the bee's knees, so to speak.
100%.
But to have someone so close to you that knows you so well to tell you, reflect back to you the parts of stuff that you're almost afraid to be proud of sometimes gives you like so much freedom,
Mm,
even more freedom. Just like, okay, I knew I was doing something good, but now I have zero doubts.
yeah, I love that. Wow. I think like that nails it on the head as far as what relationships can do for you in terms of amplifying like your self-love and confidence and helping you see what it is that you're not seeing.
Yeah, and even sometimes with the not so good ones, you can also feel into this doesn't resonate with me. Like
Mm,
even sometimes you can really like a person, you know that okay, this does not fit who I am, I think it's important we kind of realize that relationships aren't always meant to be the beautiful fairy tale. And I don't think anything is a wasted relationship. You always learn something, either about yourself or what you want from other people, what you expect to let into your life, what you will and won't tolerate. It's
Yeah.
life is the most intricate school.
Yes.
It's the most complex curriculum ever.
Yep. And it's like you don't know what prerequisites you need to pass first. And I
Nope.
earlier in the conversation, you were talking about how when you started going to school for what you really loved and wanted, you realized the difference of like feeling like, okay, this is where I belong. This is how I feel. Like you felt like, okay, this is how it's supposed to be. Like this is like me feeling like myself, right? I guess
Hmm.
for people who are still on that journey, like what would you say are indicators that people can look for when they are maybe in a place that isn't celebrating them or isn't like true to them?
When it doesn't fit. Okay. There's a term that I love when talking about this. When something doesn't fit, it feels like you're swimming through molasses and trying really, really hard to get somewhere, and it's pushing back against you. That's the moments where it feels like
Mm.
no matter how hard you try, you feel like you're getting very far, and it's draining your energy, and you're not moving as quickly as the energy is being sapped from you. Definitely, that is number one feeling when you almost feel dread or defeat before you start. When it's not fear, it's just like, uh, I
Yeah.
feel like fear is different. Fear is your heart palpitating, you're like nervous, you're shaking. But when it's not for you, it's just like all just the energy just seeps out of your body. And you rather do anything else than be where you are or do what you're doing. And sometimes it gets so bad where it feels like you're suffocating and there's no space to stretch out. It feels like the world is like right on your skin and you have to keep moving in a straight direction in a tight box. And there's no wiggle room to breathe because you just have to do this thing and blinders on, complete focus, nothing else but this, or else the world will come tumbling down around you. And it might seem like you should stay there because of that feeling, but that just tells you this where you are isn't holding you. It's not supporting you. It's stuff slowly suffocating your life force.
Wow.
I think that's a really big indicator. Like to use the alternative, I guess, to make a point, when you're in a space where you're meant to be, you might have anxiety, but you can't ignore the curiosity and excitement behind it. You're almost mad at yourself because even though you're afraid, part of you's like, but I want to find out. This is terrifying. You probably go wrong. But I just kind of want to see. I just need to know if it's gonna fail. Like you're almost like telling yourself it could like don't do it, but you're like, but what? But maybe you're almost in that argument with yourself, trying to convince yourself that you don't want to do it, versus convincing yourself you do want to do it.
Right.
You're
Wow.
like, this is crazy. This is horrible. Why am I doing this thing? That's usually when you're like, because it's where you're supposed to be going. It feels like I'm. This is insane.
Wow. I really like that distinction. I think those are like some really good nuggets for people to take and like reflect on. I'm definitely reflecting on it as you're talking, and I can see times where I felt that way. What do you think is the role of social media on our self-love and confidence and the fear of being seen?
I feel like social media is a bit of a mousetrap. If I'm going to be completely honest, though I utilize it and I enjoy it, it's a bit of a mousetrap because it it pulls you in because of aspiration. Most of we see something like I want to be there, or this excites me, or this brings me peace. It's like aspiration, dopamine, of course. And to some degree, when you are aspiring to be something, there becomes a switch in your mind with social media. I think was kind of programmed for to get a little political, kind of programmed for you wanting to desire to be where that person is. But we can kind of in our mind get this image of this is the only way this life looks. This is
Mm,
the only way that I can turn out in the end because I keep seeing this version. And when something is going well, get repeaters and it trends. So now all you see is this version of success, this version of an ideal future, this version of the dream life you want. And then you're like, we want to get there. You're like, but I'm not that person. I can't do it like them. I'll get rejected because I'm not exactly like that. I feel like if it's not that, it's a bust. And we're never going to be the person we see on the screen because that's them and we're us. So we're like, if I'm not exactly like who I'm trying to get to or trying to be, then I already automatically failed. It can't work. I've talked to people who a lot of musicians, surprisingly more than anybody else, a lot of musicians saying, well, people won't like me because my sound is too different. People won't like me because I
mm,
don't talk about this because all you see is these things. It's like I don't want to go out there and fail because I'm too authentic. I'm too original. And what people don't like are original. But in reality, people crave original. And that's what gets people interested in the first place. It's kind of like people want your version, but you haven't yet seen your version. So you're not sure if your version will be affirmed back to you. But if you show it, it will be affirmed back to you. And you run into becoming the person that other people trying to emulate. And it's like a cycle of it'll work out on your favor as long as you remember that it's not a photo frame you're trying to fit into. It's not a picture you're trying to fit into. It's a melody that
mm.
you're tuning into.
Right. Wow. Whew. I feel like when you said that about musicians, it can apply to pretty much everyone, right? But especially
Yeah.
I feel like musicians puts it in such bright light or like perspective in the sense that it's true that when we're looking for music, at least sounds like you and I agree that like you're wanting original sounds, like you're wanting like something that is unique. Like I'm not necessarily looking for like the same artists that I already listen to,
Mm-hmm.
right? If I want like Beyonce, I'll listen to Beyonce. If whoever, John Mayer, I'll listen to John Mayer. I don't need to find his lookalike, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you just said can apply to everything else too. It's like that's where authenticity really shines is when we allow our true talents to come through versus trying to emulate what someone else is already doing. And it's like what's your best versus trying to emulate someone else's best. I think that
Yeah.
really like resonate with me. So I appreciate you for putting it that way.
Of course. And hearing you talk, I just thought about it was in a podcast I was listening to like a couple weeks ago talking about Microsoft and Apple
Mm,
and how Apple got really big because Apple is not competing against anybody. Apple's competing against Apple themselves, and their whole goal is to be inspiration, to be the brand of vision leaders who want to make change.
mm,
Now, Microsoft, even though they have really high quality products, they weren't able to shine as bright as Apple because Microsoft is trying to beat Apple. They're trying to be
mm.
like Apple, be better than Apple. But Apple is only focused on being the best of them
Wow.
and they shine a brighter light. And we notice it because you always shine brighter when you're trying to be the best you. You're trying to be someone else. Like you said, they rather just listen to the original, the first one to do it. I think that would say, authenticity is better than originality. And if you're
Mm,
being authentic, you'll always be original because your version will never be their version because it's you. Microsoft will never be Apple because they're
yeah.
Microsoft.
I like putting it into that perspective. It's super helpful to think about these things outside of ourselves and then to bring it back to us. You kind of lose sight of that in social media in a way because
Yeah.
social media is so trend based.
No, definitely. I can use myself as an example. When I first started social media, I was like, okay, so what's working for people? And I promise the second I started just doing content that I enjoyed, that I believed in, the way that I wanted to tell it, that was when like people started tapping in more.
Yeah.
And when I was happier doing it, and I got a lot of people who resonated with me and the joy and Angel was bringing, and I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Because before, I wasn't showing them Kai Carter, I was showing them six other influencers that they've already seen on their feed.
Mm, I like that. The other thing, if you want to share any potential like success stories from clients in terms of like mentorship and coaching.
I think the most important thing to me as a coach with one-on-one clients is it's not always about the end goal, it's about the journey of the transformation. And like just talk to people where they are, like where you are. Everyone's like always, most people come thinking, I'm trying to get here, I'm trying to escape where I am now to get somewhere else. And they're running as hard as they can from what they're experiencing. And it's like, okay, well, let's just sit here, let's figure out where we are and
Yeah.
see if we can breathe into where we are now. Because only way to get from point A to point B is to start at point A.
Yeah.
And sometimes point B isn't what they really needed in the first place. It
Mm.
was a way out of making the grass green where you water it. And sometimes people do need to make changes, but I love people feeling comfortable softening into themselves where they are and feeling what they might have needed was just accepting who they are and where they are.
100%. I feel like a lot of times, one, that approach is more welcoming in the sense that it's not as overwhelming that you need to make some really big changes or transformations. It doesn't feel as scary. But also, like you said, the grass is greener where you water it. So it's like making big changes sometimes is just putting like a band-aid on a problem versus like
Mm-hmm.
actually like nourishing and figuring out what is it that I need to actually like fundamentally uplift and uproot within my daily things, like my daily habits, my daily practices, my like within how within like the really small ways that I think or see or perceive and like my level of mindfulness. I don't know, it's like the very little things that make the biggest changes. And like um a lot of times because of my personal story, because I did make such a big change, a lot of people will say, like, oh, well, yeah, like your life changed so much because you did all these major changes. But the thing is that honestly and truly, I can attest that you can make massive changes and still not see change if you don't
Yeah.
work on the small things within you that are,
Yeah,
that actually driving everything else, like the
definitely.
self-love, the self-care, the able to show up as your true authentic self. Like it takes so much
Absolutely.
bravery, but that bravery I feel like is always holding hands with like self-love.
Yes. Yes, I will co-sign that. It's always walking full self-love and self-compassion. I think a lot of it comes from just being compassionate with yourself and releasing the expectations that were thrust upon you.
Mm,
Those expectations we have aren't us, they were taught to us and being like, it's okay for me to not be all of the things. It's
yeah,
okay for me to be all of the things,
yeah.
all of you and not all of them. And
Mm,
having softness and kindness to what you might consider your shortcomings.
I like that. You're such a great mentor and coach, Kai. I'm so excited for more people to find you and connect with you and
Thank
learn from you.
you.
Um, yes, I'm super glad that we had this conversation. I'm super glad to know you. I feel like I can ask you like a
Oh,
hundred more questions on what you prefer in terms of self-love or compassion practices as it relates to overcoming the fear of being seen.
when it comes to the fear of being seen, I do feel like self love is extremely important to be your home, your self affirmation home, your self belief system. When you believe in yourself, the world becomes a lot bigger and and also more welcoming when you are your own anchor. And to really love yourself, you first have to try to understand yourself and be there with yourself and learn who you are and what you stand for. So the tool that I believe in, and not just because I created it, is the Fearless Visibility Workbook, which I have on my site, as well as the Trust Your Gut Guide. And they're both free to download. And one is focusing on being okay, being yourself in the public eye. That's the Fearless Visibility Workbook. It's learning who you are, your morals, your values, what you stand for, what lights you up, and moving into a place of getting comfortable showing that out. So I include a practice that's called exposure therapy, which is basically taking small steps to show off aspects of you gradually. You can start with things that find super important, like your music taste. Talk about that very easily. That could go up to your hobbies. You might collect stamps and be like, you don't like that, but that's part of you. And working your way up to showing up all of you. And by gradually putting some of those spaces, you build up that muscle of discernment, one of who accepts you and who you don't need in your life, but also comfortability, being an oddball and standing in that truth. And though it starts with being okay with yourself, I like that the workbook also tackles the next step, which is putting yourself out there. And the Trust Your Gut Guide kind of goes with your visibility because it is basically step-by-step practice for people who struggle with overthinking their choices. Is this the right move to make? Is this what's best for me? Could this not work out? And going through a step-by-step system, very easy step-by-step follow along guide. I made it very thorough. Shout out to my Virgos. I am the stereotype. Very thorough step-by-step guide on confronting the limiting beliefs and reaffirming what you already know, which is you have handled everything up to this point. And if you have a plan in your mind of, okay, how do I handle it? The fear can't stand anything because the fear is built of what ifs. What if, what if, what if? But you have that foundation and know where you're going, where you're trying to go, and have that compassion built in. The what ifs is like, well, yeah, what if? It could go really well though. And I feel like those two are my proudest pieces of work, but also extremely helpful. And like I said, they're free to download for anybody to get yourself started on understanding yourself and putting yourself out there and trusting the moves you make. Because I think part of self love and self relationship is to trust yourself with yourself. You are your own parent and your own child simultaneously. Trust is so necessary for that union, with any union, but definitely the one between you and you. And to be a shameless plug, we do have two workshops coming up. One on February 18th. It's upcoming Sunday, I believe, on putting yourself out there with featuring Leaf of Life Co, who's an inner child healing and creativity coach. And then on the would be 24th, 24th, 25th, 20, I think 24th of February, we have another workshop at 11 a.m. on self-trust specifically with the Fruits and Seeds, who is a mindset and manifestation mentor. And those are very, very exciting. Leading up, of course, there's the here's my turn. Words. And if you like what you see in the workshops, you can always work with me one-on-one. Check out my website. I have a one-on-one coaching program. That's this 12-week program that we can really deep dive into making long-term change, making those habits down, and really understanding yourself and getting to the core of you. We also have a 90-minute one-on-one deep dive call if you're just trying to tackle the next step. If you already know where you're trying to go and you just need a game plan in mind, we can hatch out a game plan together.
Awesome. I also want to ask you, Kai, to share with listeners how they can connect with you, maybe share your handle, and yeah, the best ways to find you, maybe your website.
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram at 1 Hour Journey Inward, all one word, no dashes or slashes. And you can also check me out or check out my birthing blog at www.onehourjourneyinward.com.
Yay. Amazing. I will also share it in the show notes so you can reference it there. I should probably say that first. I'll include Kai's contact information in the show notes. And Kai, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you for having me. I was very happy to be here.
Of course, it's my pleasure, and I'm so excited for everyone to find you and to reach out to you and hear more from you. If you already know Kai, this gives you an opportunity to get to know her more and her work. And feel free to reach out to us. Let us know if you have any questions, any feedback and suggestions. Always open to your input and thoughts. Also, feel free to share this with anyone else who would resonate and who could enjoy this conversation. Thank you again, Kai, for being here.
Say yes, yes to all of that. And please subscribe and continue to listen to the lovely Shirley. Check out her work. She's also an amazing coach online, sharing so many nuggets of wisdom and peace. It is not just me, we're a community of healing workers, light workers. Show her some love as well, please.
Oh, thank you so much, Kai. You're so sweet. I'm so thankful for all of you being here, for you being here. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.